Baltimore City Council Ways and Means Committee, we're back in session for Council Bill 22-0235, Ordinance of Estimates for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023. I'm Eric Costello, Councilman from the 11th District, Chair of the committee. I'm joined to my far right by Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton, 6th District, member of the committee. To my immediate left, Vice Chair of the committee, Councilman Robert Stokes, 12th District. Councilman James Torrance, 7th District, and Councilwoman Odette Ramos, 14th District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Joining us on behalf of Mayor Brandon Scott is Chief of Staff Michael Huber. On behalf of and Sophia G. On behalf of Council President Nick Mosby is Matt Stegman and Nate Poole. To my immediate right is Marguerite Curran, staff to the committee. We are back for Baltimore Office of Promotion in the Arts, or BOPA. Ms. Drew Sawyer, I understand you have some remarks to provide. I'm going to turn it over to you at this time. Before you begin, if you would kindly introduce the members of your staff that are with us today, first and last name, along with position title, please.
I'd be glad to. First, let me introduce our board chair, Brian Lyles. He's the chair of the BOPA and BFAI board. I have Tanya Miller Hall. She is Chief Marketing and Events for BOPA. I have Randy, Norris, I'm sorry. Randy Norris, who is our Deputy Director, and Ethan Cohen, who is sitting in from Ted Clark's office.
Deputy Mayor Ted Carter.
Carter's office, I'm sorry.
We've also been joined by Councilman Isaac Gitzy Schleifer, 5th District, member of the committee.
Very good. Good morning, Chairman Costello and esteemed council members. I appreciate this additional opportunity to come before you and to clarify and highlight what I believe are some essential facts and additional context following our discussion on June 2nd. I very much appreciate the presence of the BOPA board chair, Brian Lyles, who wanted to be here and is also available for any questions you may have. Our mandate as a service provider to the residents of Baltimore City is to serve as the city's Arts and Culture Office, overseeing the City of Baltimore's Arts Council, Film Office, and producer of citywide events, including administering arts education, community and organization project grants, and the city's Creative Baltimore Fund. Additionally, I am privileged to be invited to participate as a member of the Mayor's Cabinet and to collaborate with the members and leaders of his administration. I don't feel it necessary to reiterate the points I made in my opening remarks of June 2nd, but again, I want to emphasize that this is our mandate, mission, and shared commitment to elevate the arts in Baltimore and to invest in our city's creative community, and importantly, to serve as your partner and provider in bringing quality, inclusive, and impactful artistic and cultural programming within reach of each and every resident of our great city. Throughout these difficult 2 years during COVID, BOPA has worked to ensure that the creative community was sustained and continued to thrive in the face of shuttered venues, canceled commissions, and reduced access to audiences. BOPA immediately pivoted to provide support to the creative community in the form of direct financial support. In March of 2020, BOPA used our funding to provide the initial seed money for the Baltimore Artist Emergency Relief Fund. We collaborated with a coalition of foundations, individuals, and other arts organizations to raise more than $160,000 in funding to provide grants to creatives throughout Baltimore City before federal stimulus checks and unemployment support were made available. These funds provided food, rent, medical care, or work supplies, whatever their immediate needs were. BOPA staff took on the task of collecting the requests and distributing $500 individual grants to over 320 local artists. Though we could not produce Artscape as a physical event, we used the virtual environment to amplify and continue our support for Baltimore's creatives. BOPA launched an online portal, Artscape Artist Market, that was free to all artists and provided 75 creatives the opportunity to sell their work. even though we were all in quarantine. We produced online exhibitions, including presenting 11 emerging artists in the B2020 virtual exhibition. We produced weekly artist talks and performances in a virtual artist cafe that gave Baltimore artists access to a worldwide audience. We also produced Freefall Baltimore and Open Studios Tour as video content, still providing $45,000 in grants to arts organization and local artists. We presented Society's Cage, a massive outdoor public art installation that safely educated visitors about the Black American experience. BOPA launched I'm Creative and I Count to help boost census participation in Baltimore through a targeted campaign reaching nearly 73,000 in the creative community to urge them to participate in the national census. When restrictions began to ease in 2021, we added a series of pop-up outdoor exhibitions to give the creative community the opportunity to engage with audiences. We added 5 murals to the more than 250 murals we have helped communities create across Baltimore. Despite COVID restrictions, working with YouthWorks through Art at Work, we were able to safely provide 10 Baltimore City youth the opportunity to plan and paint a mural in their community. Each year, as you know, we produce the Sondheim Art Prize, giving 244 artists the opportunity to earn semifinalists, finalists, and grand prizes, and have their work hang in our prestigious arts institutions. Through our Scholastic Art and Writing Award program that BOPA brought to Baltimore in 2019, we provide over 3,000 students annually with the opportunity to share their work with our community as well as compete on a national level. Virtual programming such as The Business of Arts engaged dozens of creatives at all stages of their career with professional development that included financial literacy and branding education, as well as mini grants and network opportunities. Today, BOPA is administering $500,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funds for the City of Baltimore for artists in mostly underserved areas. Throughout the pandemic and beyond, even though BOPA's revenue decreased 45% from fiscal year 2020 due to lack of festivals, we continue to work diligently to ensure that Baltimore's creative community is supported and continues to thrive post-pandemic, and they have. We could not have achieved those results without support we received from Baltimore City, and we cannot continue this work without the city's generous support. The funding that you approve, the support from funders like BGE, Whiting Turner, T. Rowe Price, the Maryland State Arts Council, M&T Bank, Mercy Hospital, Morgan State University, Loyola, the Franz Marek Foundation, the Meyerhoff Family Charities, and others, more than I have time to name here, enables us to keep up the essential work of ensuring the viability of Baltimore's creative community. Another area that you highlighted during my last appearance before you was the need for robust and regular collaboration, certainly with our key stakeholders, the leaders of other cultural organizations, neighborhood associations, and especially with you, the members of the City Council. I assure you that indeed we have been reaching out continually with our community partners and will continue to do so in a spirit of true collaboration and to ensure that you are at the center of our conversations. And as I indicated in our June 2nd discussion, we provide bi-weekly reports of our activities engagements to the Office of the Mayor. And as you noted, we can do a better job of interacting with you and updating you on our work with your constituents in our fulfillment of our mandate to be a service provider to the city. Last week, we sent the bi-weekly overview to all members of City Council, as well as Chief Administrative Officer Shorter, Deputy Mayor Carter, and others. If there is anyone else in city government you would recommend we share information with concerning BOPA's accomplishments on a regular basis, we are happy to add them to the list of recipients. We will make no assumptions going forward about the flow of information, but will engage in a robust process to share our plans, our concerns, our challenges, and our ambitions as we work to extend the reach and impact of BOPA for the benefit and enrichment of all Baltimoreans. I would like to say a further word about Artscape and the discussion to extend its footprint, something that has been underway before the onset of COVID disrupted the regular presentation of Artscape. In fact, as far back as 2013, BOPA expanded up North Charles to the Station North Arts and Entertainment District. I want to make it clear that no decisions have been made about the future iterations of our cherished Community Arts Festival, as we continue to consider how best to extend the economic impact of Artscape. Throughout 2022, we have engaged partners to gather input on the return of Artscape in '23. In February, we met with Allison Burr Livingstone of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, Councilman Robert Stokes, and you, Councilman Costello. In March, we met with the Maryland State Arts Council, Lori Schwartz of Waterfront Partnership, and Shalonda Stokes of Downtown Partnership. April meetings were with Sherry Parks, Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at MICA, Chris Ryer, the Director of Planning for Baltimore City, Ellen Janes, Central Baltimore Partnerships and the Station North Art and Entertainment District, City Council President Nick Mosby, and Jonathan Schwartz of the Lyric, and President Schmoke of the University of Baltimore. In May, we met with Robin Lee of Baltimore Homecoming, Kirby Fowler of the Baltimore Zoo, and again with Al Hutchinson of Visit Baltimore and his team, Ellen Janes and Jack Dana of Central Baltimore Partnership, and Sandra Gibson of the Maryland Film Festival and the Parkway Theater. And throughout the year, we have met with Jason Williams, president of Mason-Dixon Companies, to assist us with outreach and strategic direction. We are also in discussion with several potential funders, including the Maryland States Arts Council, Guinness Brewery, Kaiser Permanente, Play Airlines, Truist Bank, McCormick & Company, T-Mobile, Verizon, PepsiCo, Care First, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and several others. And just yesterday, well, just Sunday, since today is now Tuesday, and on Sunday, Bill Whitaker from 60 Minutes was in town exploring a story on BOPA and Artscape 2023. But again, no decisions have been made, and we are in the process of defining options for Mayor Scott's review that address many of the expressed desires of artists, community, and cultural leaders, and neighbors of Bolton Hill, Mount Royal, and Station North. BOPA plans to continue engaging partners and community members, and yes, you, throughout the summer to ensure that our programming and plans truly reflect the needs of artists and creatives in Baltimore. Another area that you addressed in our last conversation was the organizational changes that have been implemented at BOPA with the aim of putting artists first and to ensure the level of engagement of all communities of Baltimore that I know you also desire. Although COVID required making difficult personnel decisions, we have also been working to make the organization more efficient, responsive, and strategic. This required looking at essential competencies and expertise that we need and making changes within the organization to deliver the types of high-quality experiences that Baltimore citizens desire and have every reason to expect. I trust that you share this aim and support our efforts to create a truly professional organization that is not only a responsible steward of tax dollars you apportion to BOPA, but which optimizes every opportunity to broaden our reach and impact. Our robust schedule of curated exhibitions contributes to that impact through Emerge Baltimore, a new exhibition series at the Bromo Seltzer Arts Tower, providing up-and-coming Baltimore artists with their first exhibitions. We feature artists who have honed and perfected their art practice right here in Baltimore in our Gallery in the Sky, with exhibitions at the World Trade Center by Ernest Shaw and Lauren Lyde, who are two notable creatives who we should all be proud of. Over this past weekend, we kicked off the B-side, a monthly extension of the farmers market hours to expand BOPA's ability to provide opportunities and visibility to different kinds of artists while creating an event that brings people together. I want to emphasize that during the pandemic, the farmers market served as an essential food source and helped many vendors stay afloat. At the same time, the farmers market also served as a feeder for entrepreneurs to launch businesses that ultimately became brick-and-mortar stores, contributing to Baltimore's economy. A few examples include Ike Ben, the Mount Royal Soap Company, and the Urban Oyster. And then, of course, as you know, BOPA also manages historic facilities that serve as community arts centers and beacons of cultural tourism. Bromo Celso Arts Tower, School 33 Arts Center, and Top of the World Observation Level. Each of these venues currently feature visual art installed by resident creatives. Finally, Mr. Chairman and council members, I would be remiss in my responsibility of leading BOPA if I did not make a plea to you following comments during our last discussion about potentially withholding funding for the coming year. We can agree, and I know we do, on many things. We can also disagree on some things, but what we must all agree on is that BOPA is vital to the cultural and artistic fabric of our great city. Our work has social, civic, and economic impact that far outweighs the city's investment. In our efforts to enrich even more communities, particularly those in underserved neighborhoods, with quality, engaging, inspiring, and inclusive programming, your support and the funding you provide is essential. Not only do we depend on it, our artistic beneficiaries depend on it, our young people depend on it. Neighborhoods, corporate partners, and their employees depend on it. Our countless visitors from surrounding counties and further afar also depend on it. To deprive BOPA of funding is to deprive our many essential stakeholders, your constituents, of transformative experiences and a reduction in the quality of life that we aspire to make possible. On behalf of our board, our dedicated employees, we pledge to be your partner in what is not only an effort, but not only a worthy effort, but an essential one, to extend possibilities and potential for current and future generations of Baltimoreans through the shared experience of community art and culture. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Appreciate your introductory comments. Mr. Chairman, really appreciate your attention to this hearing and being here with us today. First thing I want to start off with, I do want to acknowledge that I think the committee feels that BOPA is in fact vital to the cultural and artistic fabric of our city.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any confusion about that, and we recognize the critical role that BOPA plays in those efforts. The first thing I want to touch on is Artscape, and I'm very hopeful that after we've all had some time to decompress after the last hearing, that we can get to a good place on that. What I'm looking for today is a simple commitment that we're going to maintain the original footprint of Artscape in Bolton Hill and Mount Vernon. I certainly understand the desire to expand to other places in the city, Station North. We have 3 other arts and entertainment districts, the Black A&E on Pennsylvania Avenue, Highlandtown and Bromo. And I think those efforts are certainly welcome, but what I want to be assured of is that is not going to be done at the expense of this world-class event taking place in Bolton Hill and Mount Vernon in the 11th District.
I can assure you that we are not, as I said in my remarks, we are still in the process of looking at where we can successfully place Artscape. We are not leaving the Mount Vernon Midtown area. We will continue to present in that area. We are working diligently with our partners there to make sure that we have a robust presence, and we will continue to do so.
I appreciate that. I'm going to come back to this in a minute and go to some of my colleagues. But again, I want to reiterate my strong desire and the need for the majority footprint of this festival to stay in Bolton Hill and Mount Vernon. And I understand from our conversations and from our previous hearing the desire to make Artscape more inclusive for smaller, less well-funded local artists. I think that's something we all agree with, and I think there's a way to make that work while still maintaining the original intent, format, footprint, et cetera, of Artscape moving forward. So again, for the sake of not repeating myself, but saying it once more, it is critically important to me that we maintain that footprint in Mount Vernon and Bolton Hill, and we place some certainty around that for those communities and for those institutional partners such as UB and MICA and the Lyric and so on and so forth. So I hope that I can walk away from this hearing today with that shared understanding and commitment from leadership at BOPA. Is that accurate?
Well, we hope to be able to bring back to you within, I'm going to say 60 days, a rendering of what we are planning so that you can see we are not leaving those areas. We are amplifying our presence throughout that area with the inclusion of additional areas in the city.
I look forward to having that conversation in 60 days and being provided with more certainty around the intention of BOPA to maintain that footprint in Bolton Hill and Mount Vernon, and hear about your plans to further expand the festival and other parts of the city without doing so at the expense of that presence. And
we look forward to sharing it with you.
I look forward to hearing it. Thank you. Councilman Stokes?
Real quick, I know you mentioned some more outreach in terms of communities. I know you mentioned Central Baltimore Partnership. They're also Station North. Have you had a conversation with them?
We have. You
have Midway CDC. You have Greenmount, Greater Greenmount Community Association, who's a part of that boundary. I didn't hear their conversation with them. I'll make sure you have that information because they impact that, what we're talking about. My other question is, you mentioned some of the artists over at Brummel Seltzer, and there are some other local artists. I know that, like Bria Sterling Wilson. She does great over there, so we need to highlight them also when we talk about our other artists. We have some local ones over there that are doing some great art. I think Bria went over to California and did a show over there and sold a lot of her art there, and she's over to Brummel Seltzer now. They just had an art show.
Yep, she's one of our featured artists.
My other question is, and I mentioned it at the other budget hearing, about when we determine a location to put have artists selected to do some artwork, and I'm using the old Elmer Henderson School on Wolf and Biddle. About 2 years ago, that building, all the copper was stolen out that building. There is some development going on in that building. My question is, and I mentioned at the budget hearing, is your office talking to housing at HABC about some particular buildings that are going to be raised or demolished? Because that particular building, we spent about $16,000 for artists, and the building is going to be demolished. It just don't make sense. It's a waste of taxpayers' money. And my question to you is, will you make sure that your office or yourself make sure before you determine a location for artists to do artwork that that particular space is not on a demo or raised or going to be raised?
I think our director of our Arts Council, Jackie Downs, reached out to you after the last hearing to assure you that we work hand in hand with the housing department and all the agencies within the city to determine if that is, wherever the community wants to place art, it is an appropriate place for it to be there. And only then are permits issued. If the city determines to demolish the building after that exploration, we are not notified of that. The community is notified, but we do our due diligence beforehand when the request is made to ensure that all city agencies that would impact that particular installation have been notified and have weighed in on installing art.
Well, just a point of information, that building was on the demo list for the last 3 or 4 years. So it's just all of a sudden it got on the list. It's been there. So I don't know who you're communicating with in housing, because that's not a true statement in terms of you getting it late, and I don't know if they shared that with you, but there should be some more conversations with housing and HABC so that doesn't happen again, because now the community upset because you demo the building, how are you going to put that somewhere else? And that's what they upset about. If you would have known, or if housing would have shared more information, because it's nothing new about that building being demoed, then we wasting taxpayers' money for $16,000, and you have a black artist who did the work. Now she's gonna watch all her hard work just disappear. So, and I'm gonna stay on this because it's a waste of taxpayers' time, and it's a waste of an artist that put a lot of work into something like that and then watch it just disappear, or the building will be demolished.
Well, we are certainly preservationists of art. We don't want to see art destroyed. That is, we worked really hard with Lexington Market to make sure it didn't happen there. We'll continue to work throughout the communities. And we don't know where this went off the rails for this particular project, but I assure you that we do our due diligence, and we only know what the city tells us as far as those buildings are concerned, but we will continue to follow up and make sure that does not happen again.
Well, just a suggestion, and I can't speak for the 13th, but if you get any particular selections of the 12th district, can somebody let me know? Then I can actually let you know what's the status of a particular building, because evidently there's some disconnect between housing and your office. So thank you.
That's part of our commitment that I stated, keeping you in the loop to let all the council know what's going on in their particular district. And if you can support us in that, we would appreciate it.
Okay.
And let me just say, as a representative of the board, this was one of the instances from the last meeting, June 2nd, that I was concerned about. And I'm glad that we are moving forward and finding a solution to that. And obviously, there must be something in the checks and balances that fell by the wayside, but we want to work with you and the council and the entire city to determine the appropriate checklist that we need to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We've been joined by Councilman Mark Conway, 4th District, Councilman Ryan Dorsey, 3rd District, member of the committee. Councilman Torrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had an opportunity to review the materials submitted by BOPA.
Mike, Councilman.
Okay. I've had an opportunity to review materials submitted by BOPA. One of the requests was insufficient, as I asked for the first and last name of employees and the rationale for why they left BOPA. It was incomplete. The first and last names were left off. The titles were there, and then the rationale only said resign, and the others were blank in terms of rationale for leaving.
We are not, we were counseled by our legal counsel that unless we have express written consent from employees, we cannot give you that information, the first names and last names. If there's someone in particular you would like us to reach out to, we're happy to do it, but we cannot do that in a public forum without their consent.
Okay, that's fine. Chief of Staff Huber, I would like to make that as a separate meeting with BOPA to discuss with Council President and also the Law Department.
Sure.
With respect to the film office, I'm still flabbergasted that we list the number of things that we charge for, but we still wait for a studio such as Fox Studios to provide notification to residents of Baltimore City. Whereas when I look at the 2020 September executed contract, the notification requirement falls on BOPA to actually do such. So with that being said, I would like to request a separate meeting to discuss changes to your film policy in terms of the office's operations. And I want to make, yes, Chief of Staff.
Please, please.
Thank you, Councilman Torrance, Mr. Chair. Just confirming that we will get on both your requests for meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that being said, I just want to be transparent for the public. Due to the lack of communication and the clear
Mike, Councilman.
Due to the lack of communication and the clear commitments that BOPA will not make today, I've submitted a request to reduce your budget by $196,000. Those funds will be released to you upon the completion and sufficiency of both commitments that we've asked for today. The reason why is that we will trust but verify with BOPA its operations, as well as ensure that you are compliant with the contract that you established with the City of Baltimore in September 2020. To be transparent for the public, in discussing it with our other agencies, we have not received a copy of your audits. We just finally received a copy of your actual bylaws, which were requested in December of 2021. Well, so I just want to make sure that the public understands, we're going to make sure that you are a good steward of our funding, but until we do that, you will not receive all of your funding.
Well, I personally brought our annual report, which is our last certified audit, to the chambers in the last meeting, and we sent one to your office, a digital copy as well. So you do have our most recent audit, and if you'd like me to send it again, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, an annual report and an audit are two different things, but I thank you for that.
It is an audited statement in that report.
Again, we would like to see the entire audit again, because
that's not a problem. We have it available.
The way that the four corners of the contract was established with BOPA, it said the audit, not your annual report. I just want to be frank. There are two different documents.
And it says upon request, which it was not requested, but we are happy to provide it. We have it.
Thank you.
Councilman, 1 second. Is that audit report something that can be provided by, let's say, call a business tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. If you could email that over to me, I'll make sure it gets out to the committee.
And with that being said, there will be constraints for BOPA to follow its entire contract of September 2020. If such following does not, if strict compliance with that contract does not happen, I intend to make sure that the council will move to transition the operations that BOPA currently has for city agencies back to the City of Baltimore. I just want to be frank that as of 2025, you will lose all services that you do for the City of Baltimore if you do not work continually with this council, as well as the administration of Baltimore City, as well as regain trust of your partners outside of city government as well. Because to be transparent, the conversations we've had with partners that you may have mentioned, there is no trust there.
I beg to differ. That is not what they're telling us, and we're working with them.
We can agree to disagree on that, and that's why we're going to have separate conversations so we can have honest
I'm happy
conversations
to.
that are not in public, that you must understand that there has to be a 360 understanding of what BOPA actually truly looks like to not only BOPA, but have conversations with your partners about what that looks like as well. Because the private conversations we've had with them is totally different than what you have communicated in the public. I'm just being frank. Well,
let me be frank and say that we've had conversations as well. We have excellent working relationships with pretty much everybody that we work with. If there are particular organizations that have a problem with us, we'd appreciate hearing about it, because our goal is to follow that contract to the letter of the law. And if you will, as we read it and we present our information, we stay within the guardrails of that particular contract so that we are good stewards of the city's money.
And we shall trust but verify.
That's fine with us.
We look forward to that separate meeting, or separate meetings about this too.
Thank you. And then as an added request to that separate meeting, I still want to understand the obligations that you met for your PPP loan as well, to make sure that you are a good steward of public funds.
We are in complete compliance, and if our CFO can explain chapter and verse as to when we applied, how we applied, and how we used the money, and that is verified by the fact that all of our PPP loans were forgiven by the federal government.
That's fine. I would like to see documentation, but also have that conversation as well.
We're happy to provide that.
Thank you. Is that something that can be provided by call of business tomorrow?
I'm pretty sure it can be.
Okay, great. If it can't be, just send an email and we can negotiate a revised date for submission.
It should be provided by then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues? Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for coming back to us. I can't find it in the documents that were given back to us after the last hearing, so either it wasn't asked or they're missing. Two questions. One is there an accounting of since there was $98,000 obligated for Artscape and we haven't had Artscape for 2 years, what that money was used for instead? Do we have that? I don't know that we ever asked that. And secondly, I realize that you're not a city agency per se, but this is city money. I'm curious around, and maybe this is a law department question who's not here, would you have had to, I mean, you needed to get permission to spend that money elsewhere if you weren't going to be spending it on Artscape. So was there ever a conversation between the Board of Estimates or anybody around that, around having to move that money around to use, I mean, obviously you had to use it for other emergency things, so I want to make sure that there was some sort of conversation around the accountability around that funding.
We did not spend it on anything but Artscape-related activities. While we didn't present a physical Artscape, we did do a virtual edition of Artscape that ran from June through August of 20. And we used the Artscape money to set up the artist market for 75 artists to be able to sell their work and keep going through the pandemic. We used it to have a digital version of the Artist Cafe, the things that I mentioned in my thing, those events cost in excess of what the city gave us. And we also had started planning the physical version of Artscape prior to the shutdown in March. So we had spent some money on preparations for Artscape in July. So all of that money did go to the preparation of Artscape, either as a physical entity or on a digital platform.
Is that the same for like the book festival in Light City?
We had not started planning Book Festival in Light City and spent no funds, city funds, on those events.
Okay. Thank you. I'd love to have more of a description on this, and I'll look at your document that you sent us this morning, which were your remarks, for more specifics. Do you have a follow-up?
I do. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure for the public and the persons present to understand that under the Exhibit D, Section 3, financial reports, there is no request. You're required to provide your financial statements, your audit statements every year at the end of the calendar year, the contract year. I just want to be clear that, again, that trust but verify, when you said that is upon our request, that is not actually the letter of the contract. I just want to be frank that, like, this is where that trust comes from.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In our last meeting here, I had asked for a list of the folks that your strategic planning consultant has met with so far in their process. Have you been able to get that together?
Thanks, Councilman. So what was provided to you was a list of people that attended the listening sessions, and then we also provided an overview of the strategic planning kind of components. So there are 3 different components to get community feedback. There is the constituent survey that is ongoing. There is the interviews, which we have not started. I believe they're starting at the end of June. And then there were listening sessions that were conducted in partnership with the Arts Council, who had to conduct them for a part of MSAC funding. And so those sessions were what you were provided a list for, because those are the broad outreach that we're doing to the artist community.
Okay, I think we were all given the impression that the one-on-one interviews had been ongoing since the beginning of this year.
So as a correction, those were not started. Those have not been started. It was the group listening sessions that had started this year. The individual interviews haven't started yet, and we have added, after June 2nd's hearing, we have added all council members to that list, so they should be reaching out.
And other than adding all the council members to that list, which I guess I appreciate that, the list that your consultant is going off of is derived from you, right? I mean, you're providing that list for them to go off of?
And they're making inquiries on their own. They're looking at organizations and individuals in the landscape and making decisions as to who they thought might enhance the strategic plan.
Okay. And
We've been joined by Councilwoman Danny McCray, 2nd District, member of the committee.
Let me just say that the strategic planning process is a very important project for us. It's board initiated and board driven, and we have a strategic planning committee that has been involved throughout the process. And we look forward to increased participation from members of your council districts, residents of Baltimore, and also your offices as well, to make sure that we reach as many people as possible to get their input as to what we need to do, because BOPA has not really had a strategic plan, an official strategic plan in all of its existence. So that is an important project, and we look forward to your assistance with that.
thank you. In our last conversation, I also brought up my very serious concerns of the makeup of the board. And that the board is not representative of the arts community in the city. Can you tell me what your board membership process is? And
well, I can speak on that. Well, first, I have to...
Like how board members are selected.
Right. I have to disagree with you. We do have members of the
Mr. Chair.
cultural arts community that are a part of the board. Starting with me at the top, even though I think our bios should be listed on our website, and that's something I've talked to Donna about doing in the near future. I am representative of the cultural arts community because I've had history of working at the Baltimore Center Stage. I was a deputy director for giving at Baltimore Center Stage. I've been at the Baltimore Museum of Industry as a director of development and marketing. I've been with the Engineers Club at the Garrett Jacobs Mansion for 5 years. And in the broader aspect of the arts and communications, I have a history with Baltimore Magazine. I was there for 5 years. So, and then we have other members of our board, including Heidi Daniel, who is the head, of course, of the Enoch Pratt Free Library. Our most recent new board member, Sandra Gibson, who is the director of the Maryland Film Festival and operating the Parkway Theater. And our process is that we have a governance committee that meets on a regular basis. We always have a list of candidates that we review, and there's a vetting process. And of course, the pandemic has slowed us down a bit, but we do have some additional cultural arts members, some actual artists that are on that list that we are working on a fast track to try to get additional board members like them on board.
Can you provide, is it in your is this process in your bylaws?
I don't believe it's in our bylaws.
Do you have written documentation of your board process for consideration and vetting? And
we can provide that for you, yes.
Yeah, if you could provide written documentation of that process and other supporting documents of the process having been adhered to, or in process, or what have you. I spend a lot of time at cultural events in the city. I attend a lot of things among a huge cross-section.
That's where I first met you, I remember.
Yeah, of the arts community in the city, and I don't see the people that I commonly see and engage with at arts events represented in BOPA's board. To be frank, right? I don't see the community that I have. I'm a graduate of the School for the Arts. There are a lot of BSA alums who continue to live in Baltimore and work often part-time as artists, part-time as other things, or they live and work around the arts community. I'm a graduate of the Peabody Conservatory. My wife is an alum of MICA. I've been going to BSO concerts since I was very young, and you're just as likely to find me at the Crown. But I just don't see the folks that I commonly engage with represented in BOPA's board by a long shot. And that needs to change, like, without delay, because the folks that I commonly engage with are across the board quite dissatisfied with how the arts community is engaged and represented in BOPA's efforts. And there's I can only imagine there's a direct correlation between the lack of representation in the leadership and the outcomes that people experience. So I look forward to getting whatever documents you can provide.
We look forward to providing that.
Colleagues, any other questions? Okay. Councilman Torrance is going to be drafting up language per our discussion. It sounds like you all will be submitting some additional documentation. We look forward to reviewing it. We'll let you know if the committee has any other questions. And for now, committee's in recess. Thank you.
Thank you.